My name is Jason Buffington with the Enterprise Strategy Group. I'm the senior analyst covering data protection, and if you've been watching my blog, technicaloptimist.com, you know I'm in the middle of a series on comparing regulatory compliance with operational readiness. This week, we're going to look into financial institutions and publicly traded companies and how the regulations apply to you. So when we look at publicly traded institutions, and especially in the financial sector, there's a couple things to really keep your eye on. After 9/11, the SEC, the U.S. Treasury, and the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, the OCC, partnered together to try to figure out what lessons could be learned from the U.S. 9/11 attacks on the U.S. financial system. What you have to realize about the U.S. financial system is that it works a lot like an onion. There's multiple layers, and it's all based on that core. There's a core set of clearinghouses where money has to be able to move, and if the money isn't moving between them, none of the rest of the infrastructure is able to actually move currency around the way. So when the OCC, the SEC, and the Treasury got together, they figured out what do they need to do in order to be able to mandate, can that core of that onion be sustainable? And then it had mandates for each of the other layers of the onion as well, as far as what level of data protection and resiliency that you need along the way. Some of the top-level mandates that actually came out of that guidance, a paper called the Interagency Paper for Strengthening the U.S. Financial System, talks about how firms that use synchronous backup facilities, so replication usually at a disk level, or whose backup sites are primarily using the same labor pool as the primary site, so New York to New Jersey as an example, should also address the concern of a wider scale disruption like a power outage, like a winter storm. Those kinds of things would affect not only the primary site and the secondary site, but not only that, but also take out that shared labor pool between them. There's a mandate now that talks about how you got to split further than that, and you need to make accommodations for it. Firms that have those kinds of backup arrangements should actually strive to develop even more distant data backup and recovery and operational resources. So maybe you're synchronous from Manhattan to across the river into Hoboken, New Jersey, but then you need to be asynchronous down to Philadelphia or Phoenix or Denver or someplace else that has another copy of the data with a separate labor pool in order to ensure that there's no single point of failure within your infrastructure. So that's from the interagency paper on financial system. Some of the other mandates that comes along with that is it talks about how the business continuity planning process should take into consideration the improvements in technology and the business process such as back arrangements. Basically what it means is as technology improves, the bar of what you hold your system to should also improve. You should be using the latest technologies in order to facilitate a better level of resiliency, a more economical as well as a more efficient way to retain data, etc. And again, what it talked about was that plans that should provide for backup facilities well outside of the range of synchronous, meaning that you're going to need some level of asynchronous, whether that's in tape or cloud vaulting or something. You got to get your data not only in the building, you got to get out of the zip code as well. That particular mandate actually applies mainly to the primary clearinghouses and then the level of banks and financial institutions that directly deal with them. And then, as I mentioned, like an onion, as the layers get further and further out, they have different retention rules and different resiliency rules at 24 hours after a crisis, 72 hours after a crisis, etc. So depending on your role, that's going to vary a little bit, but it really does get down all the way down to almost the regional bank level if you look hard enough. Now, aside from just financial institutions, you should also be thinking about if you're a publicly traded company, you're thinking about SOX. It's something that we've all talked about for years. Oh, I have to do my SOX mandates. I have to do my SOX compliance. Look, when you look at a SOX regulation, actually look at it in detail, you're not going to find a whole lot of words like backup or disaster recovery. You're going to find a lot of stuff around retention of records. That's because SOX really comes back to the SEC regulations that come all the way back to the beginning of the stock exchange when there was a mandate around how long should I keep the paper records that dealt with the movement of money. Now, of course, in the 21st century, that movement of money is all electronic, and so the electronic data we have has the same weight as the paper records that were mandated all the way back with the SEC regulations 17A3 and 17A4. It's all around holding on to your data for the right reasons. It's about being a good citizen and a steward of your data. It's not around thou shalt have a disaster recovery policy. That actually came later with the SEC. But for now, in SOX, be thinking about the retention of data and how your data protection IT strategy should be falling into that. Hopefully what you saw is the regulations aren't as specific as you might think, but they aren't as complicated either, as long as you dig in and can find the parts that actually matter to you. Once you found those parts, instead of trying to address regulatory compliance as a separate set of initiatives within your organization, the goal should be to take those compliance mandates and put them into the larger set of what are you accountable for to your executive management. It becomes part of your overall data protection strategy. That allows for not only regulatory compliance and passing an audit, but also the technical agility to actually recover your operations, whether it's across your physical, your virtual, or your cloud-based infrastructures. Hopefully that helps. Come back to my blog, technicaloptimist.com, and find out other regulations that might have similar benefits.